Okay, so we're going to go over the questions from this lesson, from How Our Shadows Form, Lesson 4, and then we will get our shadows foldable filled in. Okay? Let me move this up. On page 79 in the text, who can give me a summary of those two paragraphs? What was it focusing on? Fisher? What'd you say? Okay, it defines shadow, but it focused more on what, Emma? The shadows, like where shadows come from. What has to be there for a shadow to form, Hutley? Yeah, a light source. You specifically said sun, but it just has to have a light source, okay? And light is a form of energy. It says that in the very first sentence. And it talks about how light energy travels in waves, as waves in straight lines, as long as nothing is in its way. Okay, so light travels in straight lines that we call waves, which is weird, until something blocks it. Okay? A shadow is an area of partial darkness where light has been blocked by an object. So for a shadow to form, we need light and we need an object. Okay, we need an object. Who remembers the 3 types of objects? 3 types of objects from the video yesterday. Ava? An opaque object is what most objects are. That's just like a solid, like we are opaque, the desk is opaque, the book is opaque. It's not see-through whatsoever. Carter? Transparent object is a what? Completely see-through, like, can you give me an example? Glass. So glass is like on your face, glass in a window, glass in a front door. What's the third one, Addie J? Translucent is the third one. Who can give me an example of a translucent object? Jackson?
A Tupperware lid.
I would say more Tupperware. Well, I guess some lids are translucent. Fisher, grab my lunchbox. Speaking of Tupperware, good example. Okay, so actually I have this one right here. Is this one transparent or translucent? I would say that one's pretty translucent because it's pretty see-through. Let me see if I think my one in here today. The lid looks dirty, okay? See the difference? See how that one's a little bit harder to see through? It's not just because it's dirty and has food on the inside, but it's more translucent than just this solid one where you can clearly see the dice through that one, okay? So translucent and transparent are similar. An example I was thinking of, we talked about yesterday, was like tinted windows. Can you still see through tinted windows? Yes. Frosted glass. What was frosted glass? Does anybody remember that from yesterday, Hutley? Yeah, and it's really not dark. It's more like whitish. It's made to look like there's frost on it. That's why it's called frosted glass. Can you guys all picture like frost on a window? That's what frosted glass is. It's evenly covered with kind of that whitish stuff. So you can still see light through it. Light still comes through. But if someone was standing behind a frosted glass, you might be able to see like their outline or like a darker spot, but you won't be able to say, hey, Addie's on the other side of that frosted glass. Okay? So that was kind of the gist of page 1, was talking about how you had to have a light source and an object to create a shadow. Number 1 said, look at the object shown. Draw what the object's shadow might look like if the object were in a path of light. And then it shows a pineapple. Okay? So first, you should have drawn your pineapple. This is number 1. Oops. Number 1. You guys can see my pineapple drawing skills. Okay, so first you needed your pineapple. There's our pineapple. Before you drew a shadow, what else do you really need to place? The light source, because depending on where your light is, will that affect what the shadow looks like? Yes, so this is something I think a lot of you need to add in. I will have to do it 3 different times to make sure I cover everybody's light source. So I'm going to just say, I'm going to make a black sun here. If the sun is right here, where would the shadow be? Fisher?
On the right side of the drawing.
Yeah, because you guys can all picture that. And if it's right here, okay, it should be kind of down here. Would it be just kind of in a puddle underneath of it? No. Would it still look like a pineapple? Yes. So that one would be, I'm going to try and draw it here. There's my shadow there. It would still look like the pineapple. It just kind of be laying on its side. It might be stretched out a little bit depending on the angle of the sun. Okay, I'm going to have to draw 3. You only had to do 1. What if pineapple number 2 looks more like a carrot? What if pineapple number 2, the sun is, black sun, black shadow. If the sun's straight above the pineapple, Lainey, what will that shadow? Yeah, it's going to kind of look like a puddle down here at the bottom. You might still see some of those crazy top things, but for the most part, it's just going to kind of be a puddle at the bottom of the pineapple. Okay? Where else could the sun be? Hutley? On the right side. And I'm going to draw this one even a little bit lower in the sky. Oops, that's a long pineapple. It's a big one. Pineapple number 3. If, I'm going to say the sun's just coming up or going down. If there's the sun there, where will the shadow be? Lainey?
On the side.
On the left side. If it's low in the sky, who remembers, what does that do to our shadow? Carter? It's going to make it look taller. Usually early in the morning or right before the sun goes down, that's when your shadows are really long and they look like you're about 20 feet tall. So this one, I'm going to go into that one, do a long, skinny pineapple there. If the sun was low in the sky, it would go to that other side. Okay, so now, whatever your picture looks like, you should have a light source and a shadow. So if you just had the shadow, try and figure out where your light source would be and which of those angles would your light source be. Okay, then we're going to move on to number 2. I think I can squeeze it over here. Number 2 said, do objects such as waxed paper and frosted glass have shadows when they are in the path of light? Wax paper and frosted glass are what kind of objects? Translucent. Let's write that word because that word is nowhere in our book. It was just in that video yesterday. I want you to add in the word translucent objects. We're just going to write it in parentheses. Okay, just so you know, those are giving examples of translucent objects which you can see through. But do they block some light? Yes, so will they create a shadow?
Yeah.
If it blocks light, it creates a shadow. But is it going to be a really dark shadow?
No.
No. Okay, so we're going to write yes.
Miss Shelley,
Yep.
Alyssa's dad's here to pick her up.
Okay, I'll send her down.
Thank you.
Thanks. It would create a light shadow because, bye Elise, it would block some light. So you didn't have to have that word for word, but you should have something along those lines. If you just had yes, you should probably have more than that. Okay, it would create a light shadow because it would block some light. Okay, opaque objects make darker shadows because they block all of the light coming through. Any questions on that one? Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Okay, in this one, it was talking about your shadows. I'm just going to read the paragraph because it goes with number 3. If you hold your hand in front of a wall and then shine a flashlight on your hand, a hand-shaped shadow will show up on the wall. Your hand absorbs or reflects the light and blocks the path of the light rays. A shadow appears where the light rays cannot reach the wall. The size of a shadow can change. If you hold your hand close to the wall and shine a flashlight on it, the shadow will be about the same size as your hand. If you move your hand closer to the flashlight or the light source, the shadow will be larger. So the closer you get to the light source, what happens to the shadow? It gets bigger. And the farther away, it gets smaller. Okay, number 3 said, read the paragraph again. Circle what causes a shadow to form. Fisher, what did you circle?
A shadow appears where the light rays cannot reach it.
Okay, so from the light rays not reaching the wall works. Let's add a little bit to that. Hutley?
I said absorbs or reflects the light and blocks the path of light rays.
Yeah, so I would say that both of those sentences kind of go together. So if you didn't already have it circled, go ahead and circle from your hand absorbs all the way to the end of the next sentence that ends in wall. So your hand absorbs or reflects the light and blocks the path of the light rays. A shadow appears where the light rays cannot reach the wall. So it blocks the light from reaching the wall. Now, does our hand reflect light? No. If you're in the car and the sun's coming in and I'm doing this, trying to blind Mason, am I reflecting anything off my hand? But what on my hand can do that? Yeah, my watch. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a car and you've seen like little specks of things that look like they're flying around. Those are reflections of light. Okay, glasses do that, watches do that, obviously mirrors and things that you would think of being reflected, but a lot of watches do that too, or cell phones. Okay, the cover of a cell phone oftentimes reflects lights if you're trying to blind someone while they're driving. I don't suggest that, but you know, if you're trying to blind your brother in the seat next to you, I don't suggest that either, but you could do it with a phone or a watch if the sun hits it just right and you are reflecting the light. So it's coming in at an angle and you kind of make it hit your watch and turn it to a different angle to blind them. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. You guys can all visualize being that kid in the back seat.
I have been that.
I know. Okay, number 4. In which picture is the light source closer to the object? So if the light source is closer to the object, what's going to happen to the object? Emma?
Like the shadows, like the object, like the shadow of the object is bigger.
Yes, so in parentheses here, we're just going to add on number 4 to your answer. I want you to write closer equals larger. Okay, that's what we had to process to be able to answer this question, that closer to the object, the light source closer to the object results in a bigger shadow. So which picture shows that? Hutley?
The left, because the shadow is bigger than the right.
Okay, it is bigger than right, but let's focus on that picture. It's bigger than the object. Okay, the object, which in this case is the hand. So the left picture because the shadow is larger than the object. or in parentheses I'm going to put hand. That is the object we are referring to. Okay, next page. Number 5. Do you think it is early morning or noon in this picture, and explain? Braxton, what do you think? Number 5. What?
Morning,
Early morning, why?
because it would be larger.
Because in the morning the shadow will be larger. What would it look like at noon? Bryson?
Be like small or bigger, smaller.
Smaller, and where would it be if it's noon? Where is the sun at noon?
It's higher up in the sky.
It's straight up above us, so what would everything's shadow look like, Carter? Kind of a blob or like a puddle underneath of it. So all of that is correct. So for number 5, it is morning. Okay? And the reasoning would be that a longer shadow forms in the morning. Does anybody remember why? Because, Lainey?
The sun is like on the side of it, like
And
when it's on the side.
so do we say it's on the side of the sky? I know this is some terminology we don't use a lot.
If the tree has a bigger shadow.
Okay, it does have a longer, that's how we can tell where the sun is. But a longer shadow, sorry, that's what I should have had here. A longer shadow forms in the morning because why? We have to say something about our light source, but we have to put it into words that make sense when we're talking about that light source. Carter?
The sun is
Lower in the sky. Do we talk like that? Do we say the sun is low in the sky? We usually say it's coming up, but same thing. Because the sun is lower in the sky than at noon. Oops, not that. Than at noon. Okay, and we could have also added at noon, it would look like a blob at the bottom of the palm tree. Number 6, we're not going to write incomplete sentences. Miss Beer would not approve, but we want to get to our other notes. Number 6. Explain, how does changing the position of a light source, such as a flashlight, affect the size of an object's shadow? How does changing the position of a light source affect its shadow? Emma.
like it affects it because if you have it farther away, the shadow will be like the same size. But if you have it closer to the object, the shadow will be bigger.
Okay, let's just write if light source is colon. So we don't have to write it twice. If the light source is closer to object, what do we know about the shadow? Bryson?
It's smaller.
Okay, shadow is smaller. If the light source is further from object, Wyatt, what are we going to add here? If it's further from the object, we will, or it will.
Smaller.
Read what we just wrote.
Bigger.
Bigger, yep. Is bigger. Last one, number 7. When light passes through a clear window, does the window have a shadow? Explain. So if we look over there, if I open the window, does the window have a shadow? I can't open it, I'm hooked up, but Jackson, go open that window. Pull the, nope, the strings, the shorter one. Nope, that's the longer one. There we go, okay? What do we see a shadow of? The blinds. So does the window have a shadow? That window does not, okay? So the answer is no. Why? Carter?
I was going to tell you on number 6, you got those 2 reasons. Closer to the object is bigger, further from the object.
Oh, sorry. Yep, I do have them backwards. Sorry. Closer to the object. Because if you have it close to the light source, that would result in a large shadow. Sorry. Closer to the object, shadow is bigger. Sorry. Further from the object, shadow is smaller. Sorry. Back to windows. Why do windows not have shadows? Fisher? Because they're transparent, which means what? They're see-through. So what does the light do to a transparent object? The light waves just pass through it. So we're going to put all of that. No, a window is transparent. So the light waves pass through it. Now, I will say with windows, some of the light waves are reflected. Raise your hand if you've ever driven by something and like the light hits the glass just right and it kind of blinds you. Okay, so not all of them pass through, but it doesn't block any of them. Okay, it's not an opaque or a translucent object, so none of the light waves are blocked. Some of them pass through, some of them do reflect back at the people outside, but they don't create a shadow. Now, I'm going to talk about my front door or my back door window at home. It is sometimes makes shadows. Why might my back door at home, Kinley's not allowed to answer this, why might my back door at home sometimes cast a shadow? Augie, what do you think?
Because it's really dirty.
Because I have a big slobbery dog. And what do big slobbery dogs do to windows? They make them really gross, and I get tired of cleaning that all the time. So usually like the bottom half of our back door is so it's almost opaque or looks frosted. It's not frosted, it's frosted in dog slobber. And that dog slobber, because it's thick and nasty and then it dries, creates a shadow because it's kind of creating an opaque window or a frosted window, even though it's a regular window covered in dog slobber. So dirty windows do cast shadows, and it's because there's extra stuff on them that is blocking some of the light from passing through. Okay, now we're going to get to our foldable. Okay, so go ahead and open that. Yes, you can shut your book. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Okay, so our foldable like this. The directions, which you guys don't have, says on the top one, okay, we have to decide about what time of day is it, and then we have to draw its shadow. About what time of day would we say it might look like that? Emily?
The top one might be morning.
Okay, probably early morning. What do we call it early morning? Sunrise. So at the top of this flap, we're going to write both of those things. Why can't I give an exact time?
Because you don't know what time.
Emma? Okay, yeah, so yeah, we are going to say morning, but it could be sunset also. But also that time changes every single day. It's not the same. So let's write sunrise at the top of this flap. sunrise / morning. Okay, this is on the flap. And then it also wants us to draw what the shadow may look like. Okay, and notice the placement of the sun. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's kind of back behind the house. So it would be shining from like kind of back here if I was the house. So where would its shadow be and kind of what would it look like? Aubrey? Okay, it would be kind of pushed forward. Would it be a puddle at the bottom? No. Would it be longer than the actual house? Yes. So let's try, and I know we don't have a ton of room because you can only go down to that flap, but let's make it, it would kind of still look like the house. I'm going to go down here. Okay, there's that. And then I'm going to start angling, and I can't go, I'm just going to go to the bottom of my flap. And then with your pencil, just once you draw it in, just lightly shade that. Lightly shade that. I can't lightly shade a black marker, but lightly shade in that shadow. Okay, then once you have it, we're just going to open that flap. We're going to kind of write what we drew there. Okay, we are assuming, or we are saying at sunrise, what did we say about the sun at sunrise? What is it? The angle of it. How?
On the left side and the back of the house.
It's low in the sky. At sunrise, the sun is low in the sky. So it casts a longer shadow we'll just put it that. At sunrise, the sun is low in the sky, so it casts a longer shadow. What about picture number 2? Elia, about what time do you think that is?
12 o'clock.
Yeah, which we would say, what's another time? It is, we're going to put like noon, okay? What else could we call that? If we call morning sunrise and at the end of the day sunset, what could we call noon?
Sun up.
Not sun up.
Midday.
Midday. Do you guys all agree noon is midday? Okay, so we're going to call this one, and you might have to write it on either side because the sun's right in the middle. I'm going to write midday. I think there's 2 D's in that. Yeah. And then noon. 12 o'clock is when the sun is highest in the sky. What would our shadow look like for this one? It would just kind of look like a blob underneath it, so you can just draw that. Just draw a little blob underneath it. It doesn't have to be a perfect little blob. It can be a jagged little blob if you'd like it to be. And then on the inside, we're just going to write at midday, the sun is directly over the house. We're just going to write resulting in a blob-like shadow. Does that make sense? House resulting in a blob-like shadow. Because the sun's directly overhead. So it's just kind of hitting, the sun is hitting the top of the house, and whatever the top of your house is shaped like, it's just going straight down. So it just kind of looks like a puddle. Any questions over that? Okay, if we had to draw a third one for evening / sunset, what would it look like? Lexi? Yeah, the sun would be on the right side. So where would the shadow be going? Which direction? Kind of to the left of the house and kind of out in front, depending on where the sun is positioned, in front of the house, behind the house. But yes, it would be going the opposite direction. Fisher? Sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So it depends which way the house is facing. Yeah, but sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Okay, and that's all we have today. So you can go ahead and put that out and go ahead and get out what you need for RTI. If you're not done fixing your quiz, if you're still correcting your quiz, go ahead and work on that until it's time to switch.